Pour yourself a sweet tea, pull up a lawn chair, and turn the page with us. You're listening to Right On Mississippi, a podcast taking you inside the minds of America's most treasured wordsmiths. Hosted by Ebony Lumumba and brought to you by the Mississippi Book Festival, the South's literary lawn party. Chapter 7, Marshall Ramsey. Marshall Ramsey, an editorial cartoonist, is a two-time Pulitzer finalist in the years 2002 and 2006. In addition to the cartoons that he produces, which are featured in the New York Times, USA Today, and the Clarion-Ledger, he's the author of several successful cartoon collections such as Fried Chicken and Wine and Chainsaws and Casseroles. He also has a delightful children's book titled Banjo's Dream. In addition to his writing and drawing, he's also the host of a weekly statewide radio program called Now You're Talking with Marshall Ramsey and the television program Conversations on Mississippi Public Broadcasting. Ramsey is the husband to Amy and father to 3 sons, as well as a precocious dog named Pip. And he lives right here in his home, Mississippi, which he says is the best state for politics, storytellers, and sweet tea. As usual, this is Ebony Lumumba, but so unusual, I'm sitting across from your living legend,
Wow.
Marshall Ramsey. Marshall Ramsey, I feel like there should be in-studio applause.
Yeah, I mean, the studio audience is just stunned that I'm here.
They're
like, dude, we didn't think you're a real person.
They're in shock.
Living legend.
They
Good
thought you
Lord.
were a cartoon.
So I'm going to go home and try that living legend thing on my wife
with
and
your
see what
wife?
happens. Yeah, she's going to look at me and laugh.
Well, you just let us know which hotel you're staying in
Yeah.
after that.
It'd be the Hotel California. I can check out any time I like, but I can't leave.
Oh, the
Yeah.
Eagles.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thanks for chatting with me.
Oh my gosh,
Marshall.
this is an honor.
Well, it's an honor to actually put a face with the name and the drawings.
I look like my drawings.
Well, you look like a human.
Yeah, short
being.
legs, big head, big nose. That's me.
It's a cartoon.
Yes.
It's in studio cartoon. But it's such a joy to actually see sort of the genius behind what some of the things that you've been producing for so many years.
22 here.
My goodness.
I know it.
That is more than admirable.
I was young when I got here.
You're a child bride.
I know. I was prodigy. That's it.
Prodigy. Oh,
Yeah.
Exactly.
28-year-old prodigy.
28-year-old. In dog years.
Yes, something like that.
That's what we're doing. So listen, Right On Mississippi, we're typically talking to folks who are writing and illustrating.
Yes, I do those things.
You do both of those things very well. But in Mississippi, outside of Mississippi, about Mississippi, I mean, we run the full gamut. Mm-hmm. And so you kind of accomplish a great deal of that. You encompass a great deal of that with your illustrations and your writing. You do talk show work and radio and television. I mean, you're a quadruple threat.
Yes, I discovered a long time ago if you have a lot of paychecks, well, if you have a lot of paychecks and you lose one of them, then you're not going to panic.
Exactly. That's a nice philosophy to have.
Yes.
I need more paychecks.
Well, I have 3 boys that eat like locusts with thyroid problems.
Goodness. Yeah. Well, I had a brother. I have a brother.
I'm about to say, does he know this? Okay. Just checking.
We still claim him.
Okay.
But he had his own set of groceries.
He's dead to me.
Right. He drank all the milk. He got his own gallon. So listen, I want to talk about your drawings. But
He got his own gallon.
He got his own gallon of milk. I am still protesting.
I'm going to steal that one. I like that. He got his own gallon.
Give me a footnote or something.
Oh, of course.
So your drawings, I mean, you talk about them, I'm sure, a great deal. You've published them. They get great notoriety. I mean, New York Times, USA Today. And I wonder if they always end up the way that you start out. Or do they have life of their own?
Yeah, sometimes they get lives of their own, and sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. I mean,
really?
If you think about it, if you do a cartoon, maybe you're not on your A game that day, and there's something in that idea that maybe you didn't see, and then suddenly somebody pulls it out, and suddenly you start getting hit over the head over something.
It's like a magic eye.
You didn't really intend to do so. Not that my stuff's really that complicated, but I mean, I really do tend to kind of fret and make sure. Now, that said, I've had a couple of cartoons in the last year that have gone super, 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 super viral.
Yeah.
Obituary cartoons.
I saw the
Bush ones.
Bush, yeah.
Exactly. They had one of
George
Barbara
Herbert.
and then one George. So I have bookends. The thing that was so amazing about those, and you're talking about a different life, of course, obviously, the Bush family was happy, yay. Politics aside, obviously, I was glad that they liked the cartoon. That said, I started getting phone calls and letters from parents who'd lost children.
Wow.
And they said that the cartoon gave them hope. So in that respect, the cartoon really did take on a life of its own. The Barbara Bush one did particularly, and even this one has, the George Bush one has too. And it's not even that they tell me that it gives them hope. They tell me their story. They shared their story with me.
Remarkable.
Have over 300. There's Matthew, for instance. Matthew lives in Brooklyn. His daughter was Sandy, and she died 2.5 months ago. And 6 years old, gorgeous little girl. He sent me a picture.
Wow.
And so he and I have been talking all week about it, you know. And I mean, I would have never met him.
Yeah.
I love this guy. He's great. But I mean, he's sitting there trying to plow through an unbelievable loss, unbelievable grief. And if my cartoon for 2 seconds gave this man a little bit of happiness, but it was nice because I was able to retweet him. And then a lot of people were reaching out to him saying how much they loved him, which, you know, Twitter can be evil 99.9% of the time. But that said, there are good people out there, and they did reach out to him. And so as an artist, you hope that something you do turns out good.
My gosh. I mean, I'm sure it's therapeutic for Matthew and other folks who are engaging this and don't know really how to broach that subject of grief or you know, kind of healing.
Right.
And so then to see this cartoon and think, wait, to get an image, sometimes we need to see things.
It is. It does help. And I tell you, both my folks died probably in the last couple of years, and just really rough diseases for both of them. And it was just difficult. And I found myself, you know, I can't get out of bed kind of thing. It just, grief, you don't understand how toxic it is and how much it will knock you down.
My God, yes.
So you know, like I said, if I can help somebody else, and that's what I told him, you know, he's like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. And I said, well, I don't have any clue what you're going through. And I, not to be mean, I pray I never do because nobody wants to lose a child. I said, but I did have cancer, and I do know I had anxiety from that, and I do know it scared the daylights out of me. And the only way I was able to get through it was to be able to help other people who had cancer too. And then,
like,
you know, and so I said, you're going to do that. That precious little girl's energy is going to live with you for the rest of your life. And you're going to find people that have gone through what you are, and you're going to lift them up, and that's going to heal you.
Wow.
So, okay.
I mean, moving from
I'm not Dr. Phil, I promise, but I just figured
I like you better.
Yeah. Well, I have hair. You would not like me with Dr. Phil's hair. It's really bad.
And the drawl, you know, is much more
well, I'm not selling stuff either, you know. Here, have some vitamins. My wife on here selling vitamins. That's like crazy.
Well, you could sell vitamins.
I could, yeah.
As long as they have drawings on them.
Well, yeah, exactly. It could be like Fred Flintstone. Oh, wait, that's already been done. Never mind.
Idea taken.
Let me see. Yeah.
So the Bush cartoons, obviously, they went super viral and folks related to them. And I personally think that you were able to capture humanity that is often lost in public figures like that. You know, folks want to talk about policies and that sort of thing. All of that is important because it affected other folks' lives. But there is also a moment to acknowledge these very human individuals. So, you know, I laud you for doing that. Those were obviously a great idea. What drawings would you have wanted to pull back?
Oh, my gosh. I always joke and say, well, that would mean that I have a conscience. I don't know. There are some cartoons, you know, because you're doing 300 something a year. So, I mean, even baseball players, you know, you get in the Hall of Fame hitting 350. So, you know, you don't expect to hit a home run every time you step up.
Right.
There are days when you don't feel good, or maybe there's just something out there. I don't know if there were some that I did early on when I moved here. And I guess maybe because I just moved here, but they were tone deaf. And I think, you know, Mississippi is a very fascinating place in the respect that, you know, I grew up in Atlanta, so it's not like I'm, you know, although one lady did, I'm not kidding you. She said, I said, well, I want to thank you guys for having me here because, of course, I just moved from San Diego and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And she looked at me and she said, you ain't from around here, are you, boy? And I said, no, ma'am, I'm from Atlanta. And she said, just as I thought, you're a Yankee.
Wait.
And I'm just thinking, well, I mean, it is Atlanta, but I was just like, okay. But I'm like,
it's a little more north.
Mississippi's a little.
Sherman also burned it.
I always use that card.
Criteria.
I play that card. Sherman burned my town down too. So, which, you know, obviously, whatever.
Right.
If he does it again, I hope it's during rush hour in Atlanta.
Well, I don't.
I don't want him to burn. I don't want to burn Jackson down though, because Chimneyville, it wasn't a good look.
I don't know that we have that many chimneys anymore. I mean, I think we lose. I think we lose the name.
That's true. I think somebody's already probably trademarked it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we couldn't do that.
Selling some barbecue.
Okay.
So listen, we can talk about you being from a different space, but you're here now. You're in Mississippi, and I mean, I'm sure there's enough fodder in our state from week to week.
Yes.
for you to produce several cartoons. But, why does Mississippi matter in the work that you do?
I was talking with Jeff Pearlman. He's an author, sports writer, and we're talking about Mississippi. And it's always fun talking to people from outside of here that don't really get it.
Yeah. Fun, you mean ironically?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I know it's fun too. I mean, I like talking about Mississippi when I go out and do my speaking and stuff like that because, because people have obviously and sometimes maybe they're right. Maybe they need to be educated a little bit on their preconceptions about what's going on here. Because I'll be honest with you, I didn't want to move here when I got the job offer.
Yeah.
At first, but for me, 2 books sealed it. Number 1, I read a book on the history of Mississippi. Then I read a biography of Medgar Evers.
Wow.
And when I read that, I was like, if that man going to have that much courage and that much passion for his home, I can go draw cartoons there.
Beautiful.
So that was that. And getting to meet the family later on, you're just like, okay, that was icing on the cake.
Murley Still is just...
There is no in between here. There is no middle ground in Mississippi. There are, it's very poor, it's very rich, it's very, very overweight, it's very athletic. You have illiteracy, you have the greatest writers ever. There's no in between. And that battleground bumping up against it, and sometimes the stuff that we don't like talking about, the dark stuff, the evil stuff, that is the grit in the oyster that makes the pearl. That's why we got the blues. That's why somebody like Jesmyn Ward can do what she does.
Right.
That's why Angie Thomas can sit there and write what she does, because that pain.
Generate something really beautiful.
Right. Get Jesmyn to tell you about her experience during Katrina.
Yeah,
they were trapped down the middle. Yeah, they're about to drown. Yeah. And the people were thinking they're stealing their equipment.
And people didn't want to take her family in.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, if you're going to take on the devil, what's a better place to do it? Right at the crossroads.
Yeah.
And it's good. And for me, I had a chance to move to Tulsa, Oklahoma. I ain't dissing on Tulsa. It's a nice town, some nice stuff going on there. But, the thing was, I'm like, I wasn't excited about the stories there. This is a great place to be if you're a storyteller.
This is a great place to be if you're a storyteller.
Because we have stories.
Do we have stories? A lot of Mississippi's capital is locked up in the narratives of this space.
John Grisham just changes the names.
It gives them very legal.
No kidding.
Implications there, but that's a wonderful concept to kind of build on this idea that Mississippi's artists have a role in writing the state.
Right.
Writing the state in both senses, right?
Right.
Writing WRIT and writing RI.
Right.
GHT. So as an illustrator.
Yes.
And so you illustrate much more than you write, but what's your role in ensuring folks see Mississippi, or truly see this space? Well,
it's so fascinating because you have some politicians that they'll rail on about my cartoons. Oh, you're just negative, blah, 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 blah. I always view the stuff I do about Mississippi kind of like the stuff I do about my sisters. I mess with them. My parents wouldn't let us sit together in church up until the time.
Get in trouble.
Because, we're in our 40s, and they wouldn't let us do this. But, if somebody from outside messes with you, you obviously you bow up.
Yeah.
And
this is my home, so I can talk about it.
But if I didn't care about this place, do you think I could get up every morning and draw a cartoon? Do you think I would care? Why waste my time if I didn't care?
So Mississippi definitely matters to us, like Mississippians, whether you're transplant or native.
Right.
Why does it matter to the rest of the nation?
Because, birthplace of music, you name what kind of genre. The civil rights era, what went on there, so much of it. Obviously, I grew up in Atlanta, so much went on there too, obviously. In Alabama, driving down from through Selma and all that. Oh my gosh, that's an incredibly powerful experience.
Even still.
But a lot of change happened here. History-wise, we matter. And as state-wise, so much comes here. And you look even on the national stage, of course, I'm not even on politicians front. We produce famous politicians. We produce, and I think one of the reasons why our politicians are successful. And I think about it, just throw Haley Barbour out for a second. And I told this to my son. I don't give out too many details about my children because there are people that don't like me. So I don't want my children to have to face that wrath. But that said, I told him in college, I said, there's 2 things I want you to learn. Number 1 is connections. Learn how to make connections. And that is probably the most important thing I think that you get from Mississippi is that because of the fact there's 2 degrees of separation.
Yeah.
It's not
if
6.
that.
No, yeah. If you know
like
somebody's mama,
0.5.
if you know somebody's mama, it's that. I got to interview Kevin Bacon, by the way. So
You're kidding.
I am like, I can kick it at that
You're
game.
done.
I am like, everybody invites me to their parties so they can play the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon because I guess what? They're going to win.
I'm it.
But they've got a song on their new album about Jackson.
Who does?
The Bacon Brothers.
You're kidding.
No. And you know what?
What's the title of this song? Do you remember?
I think it's Jackson. I'll find it on my phone. I'll tell you what inspired them, though. They walked out of the hotel down the street and saw the marker in front of the Greyhound station. And that's what starts with the song.
Wow. I'm looking, iTunes immediately when we leave this place. That's fascinating. But you see a lot of that happening.
People are inspired about us.
People are inspired by this space. Yeah. As someone who studies literature, there's so many poems, there's so many songs, and some are positive, some are not, but all impacted by what we are.
But that's the thing, and I've never been an only positive Mississippi guy spoken here.
Sure.
And I'll tell you why. It's not that I don't love it. It's just because if you can't admit what you think are the problems, you can't solve it.
Well, if you think about it with that intimacy
it's
that
the
you
whole
described.
12-step thing, You got to admit you got a problem.
The first step is admitting you have a problem. And if we think about it with that sort of familial metaphor that you used, right? You know what's wrong with your family.
Yeah, it's like, man, there's something wrong with Uncle Ted there. We got to do something with him. I don't know.
You stick
He's
around.
naked at the table. That's really disgusting.
You keep an extra set of pants for him.
You do.
Because you care.
You do kind of care. And you're kind of scared, too, at the same thing. I'm going to look up that song because I can do 2 things at once.
Awesome.
Well, maybe. We'll
another thing that you can do that I can't.
No, I wouldn't go that far.
You're an artist. What other artistic capabilities do you possess?
I paint. I love to paint. Nobody ever sees those.
Who gets to see this?
Nobody.
I'm sure it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Is Amy hanging it up in the house? Or?
No, we've got a couple of my things hanging up. honestly, and it's nothing.
Let's get it in a gallery.
I guess. I'm not that big of seeing my own stuff. No, it's just my stuff. Yeah. But what is hanging on my wall are generally things done by friends or family because that has meaning.
Yeah.
That's cool. I have to admit, I've got 2 cartoons. I've got one that's signed by both Burt Case and Kirk Fordyce.
Wow.
Yeah, and I didn't get that, but somebody else did it and gave it to me, which I think is really cool. And then the other was I was at work one day, and one of my cartoons had run in USA Today, and I got a call the next day, and it said, "Hi, my name's so-and-so. I'm Mr. Aaron's assistant." I went, "What?
Hank Aaron?"
Yes.
Whoa.
Okay. I'm 50. I'll be 51 in a couple of weeks. I grew up in Atlanta, so as you can imagine, guess. Huge. Yeah. I was there watching him, me and Chief Nakahoma, watching him hit those home runs. And so she said, well, Mr. Aaron would like a cartoon because he saw it and he loved it. And he said, can he have the original? And I said, yeah, if I can send a copy and have him sign it and send it back.
Right.
So I've got that. I've got that one too.
That is actually very cool.
That was kind of neat.
Those are the perks of the profession.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm sure you don't always have famous folks who want copies of your cartoons.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever been approached? I'm sure you have. But what story sticks out in your mind, like approached by someone who wasn't so pleased?
I don't know. I got a letter the other day, man. The guy called me a blankhead. I'm not going to say what the first part was, but you can only imagine.
We can just imagine.
You can only imagine. And I was like, dude, I hadn't been called that since 8th grade. That's awesome. I hope
brought it back.
I really hope these people that send me this stuff don't think that it's offending me because it's making me laugh most of the time. I've had politicians either passive aggressively do stuff against me. They might tweet out something obnoxious, but I've also had, Kirk Fordyce was the king of if he didn't like something, he let you know right away.
Really?
Oh yeah. He didn't stab you in the back. He got you right between the eyes. Which,
head on.
As I'm an old man, I kind of appreciate that. I'd rather somebody be honest with me and straight with me than send out a nasty tweet when they've seen me 12 times and could have brought it up. I'm like, dude, you got a problem. Talk to me.
Twitter's a horrible place.
It is lovely.
Oh, gosh. It's one of the most vile
Oh,
spaces.
No, it's great. Because, everybody's real.
Yeah.
That's,
it's that shroud of anonymity, right?
Well, it's the whole bot thing, too. You're just thinking, I always I hope your children don't marry my children because I don't want my grandchildren to be anything like you,
To be horrible people.
Just terrible people.
Like you. So do you ever get, my brother's a DJ.
Yes.
Do you get those requests? He hates them, right? Like, I need you to play this song.
Oh, yeah.
It's my jam. Play it before I leave. So do you get those requests once folks figure out you're Marshall Ramsey? Oh, you should do this drawing or you should draw this.
Yeah. And I'm really kind of weird about that because.
Yeah. Do you do that?
No. I never take ideas. And I'll tell you why. Because if somebody's going to yell at me, it's going to be my fault.
It's going to be
I'm not going to get yelled at from somebody else's idea.
For your bright idea.
Yell at them, so. And I'm not that good of an artist just to be an illustrator. For me, the idea is the fun part. So
the idea is the fun part. I mean, tell us more about that. What do you mean?
Well, I mean, I always think I think a good cartoon is 70% idea, 30% art. I mean, if you're a terrible artist, you can get away with it to a point if you have really good ideas. If you're a great artist and your ideas
stick figures work if the ideas.
Yeah, kind of. So, but the point is, I mean, like I said, so for me, I've always been more, and that's probably what I'm good at is I can come up with the ideas and I can come up with them quickly. Not always great, but I can do it. The second tower falls on 9/11, I got the cartoon. And I've always been able to do stuff like that. And those cartoons, I still look back and go, how did I do that?
How did you do that? I mean, I'm thinking, does it ever feel like the illustration or this art form isn't enough for what you want to convey?
No, I think I can do okay with it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, look, okay, this is going to sound hokey, and I got to be really careful about this because I am a pray in the closet kind of guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I have my faith, and it's pretty strong. Mm-hmm. Anybody has cancer, but somebody said, absolutely. I was in the airport, and this guy sat down, and he said, "Do you know Jesus?" I said, and this was right after my surgery. Nice. I went, "Yeah, I talk to him all the time. Yeah. Trust me."
I'm talking to him.
I'm talking to him right this second. Yeah. Actually, thank you very much. Sometimes I did a TED talk. I kind of explained that we live in this world, right? Well, in a world, it's not to sound like the guy doing the trailers, but we live in a world where there's like our cell phone, our little bottle of water, our microphone, you and I.
Yeah.
And then there's like this little barrier around it. And then there's stuff out there you can grab and pull back in. Mm-hmm. And there are times when I can do that. And when I can, that's usually when those cartoons are really, 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 really good. Mm. And so it's funny. Every once in a while I read the comments. Don't read the comments.
I was about to say, don't read the comments, man.
This dude said, that I haven't had a good cartoon since Kirk Fordyce took Dick Malpas to the woodshed. Well, number one, I didn't draw that cartoon, so guess what?
I've never had a good
cartoon.
Let you tell it.
Oh, damn. Okay. So,
never read the comments. Yeah, I'm just learning that.
But no, I have faith in humanity until I read the comments. Mm-hmm. So, but it's okay. There's people out there. That's their way of ending. Bless their heart.
That's true. Yeah.
My grandmother gave me that one. Bless your heart.
Well, that's a Mississippi thing too.
It is, isn't it? Though lovely. So southern.
It's such a lovely, ironic.
It really is.
Yeah. Bless your heart. What's the most difficult image? I mean, you talked about the 9/11 images that you produced.
Katrina. I mean, 9/11 is terrible, but Katrina was here.
Yeah, it was home.
It was our people.
Yeah.
And that's tough.
It was home.
Because number one, you can't be glib.
Right.
Because you've had people lost everything. But you got to do stuff that kind of comforts them a little bit. Yeah. And, I think the tone was right. That was the second time I was a Pulitzer finalist. One of the judges said I'd have won if I'd have been where the hurricane hit. Which technically I wasn't I wasn't in the Gulf Coast. I was here.
But you were in Mississippi.
I was in Mississippi.
Where the eye of the storm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which
is interesting of what people know and don't know.
No, I know.
About Mississippi.
Okay. Emerson College, Boston. Fantastic college. I'm out there speaking. I'm on a panel with Dottie Lynch from CBS News. She's since passed. And Donna Brazil.
Oh, wow.
About 6 months after the hurricane. So I'm sitting there, and Donna's doing just a jam-up job telling New Orleans story, and I tell Mississippi story. And one of the kids in the back raised their hands and said, "So you mean the hurricane hit Mississippi?"
Yeah.
I said, "You're paying $50,000 for your education, and you didn't know that one?"
Well, it's interesting in these narratives that are composed about our state, and still, it's not heroic to save or to pity Mississippi.
Right.
And so the eye of the storm hit here. New Orleans had some infrastructure issues that, emphasize the damage. But most people don't know. I mean, I'm teaching a Mississippi literature and culture class on Tougaloo College's campus now, and we read about the effect of Katrina on Mississippi. And these are students who are from the state. At least half of them are.
Yeah.
And some of them are from other places like Chicago and California. They've never heard that Katrina affected Mississippi in the way that it did. I
mean, my kids can barely remember it. And they're, 18, 16. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, for them, it's really ancient history. So,
oh, gosh.
I know. Well, I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
And that's what happens is that we forget about it and then it hits again. I've never gotten into the New Orleans versus Mississippi thing.
Yeah, and
I'll tell you why. Because I mean, obviously, the folks in New Orleans,
catastrophic for
when
them.
Grandma's dead in the civic
100%.
center, you're just kind of like, okay, that should have never happened.
Horrific.
That was a human disaster.
Exactly.
And you're right. You know, when you develop a channel called the Mr. Go channel, and all of a sudden the storm surge comes up and knocks all your flood walls down.
Yep.
You know, so it was our own hubris that got us in New Orleans. But the Gulf Coast, obviously, you know, when you got stuff 40 feet up in the air. I mean, when you walk into Waveland and there's stuff up in the trees, and I was cleaning off a guy's lot, and which, number one, by the way, you talk about the whole pray in the closet thing. People talk about Sunday school. Yeah. That was, to me, probably the most religious moment I've ever had in my life was going down there working. Yeah, because I saw people come from all across the country that were just doing what they should have been doing. Yeah. It was beautiful.
The Lord's work.
But this guy was asking him, I said, you know, he was telling me about his brother, lived across the street and had a 2-story house and stayed. And I said, well, where is he now? He said, on my desk in an urn. Oh, you know, so nonchalant. This at this point was 6 months after the storm. So it was crazy. But anyway, we're off in a rabbit hole. Sorry.
No, I mean, I gladly climb in that rabbit hole anytime.
Yeah, it's my world. It's my world.
Yeah.
So,
and
I can't.
I don't know that we spend enough time talking about these very human aspects of our experience.
But that's okay. Let's go back to Mississippi for a moment there, and we'll just bring in Katrina. I wrote a book called Chainsaws and Casseroles, and it's not a cookbook. But the deal is, seriously, for all of our warts and all of our problems, and we saw some of it revealed, obviously, during the Senate campaign. Yeah. The thing is, if you're in a tornado and something takes off your roof on your house, and before you can get out of the wreckage, there's going to be a church van in your front yard full of people with chainsaws and casseroles. You know, we have this knack of totally, completely doing the right thing. I guess because we have so much stupid experience. Yeah. So, I mean, you know.
Stupid experience.
I mean, with natural disasters, you know.
I'd say something similar about when my grandfather passed, and we were at my grandmother's house, and she was sitting, and she was a 4 foot, however many inches woman, and she was sitting at a table and completely dwarfed by all of this cake. And folks had been dropping off cake for days. Yeah. And she was the quintessential sort of cake master in our family for years. Yeah. And so she was kind of covering and uncovering the cake. And I just thought, what is it about, you know, like cake and death?
Funeral food, man.
Yeah, funeral food. And which, I think happens everywhere in every culture. But there's something distinct about it here.
I did a book called Fried Chicken and Wine, and that is where the title came from. Was from, you know, a guy was coming home. He'd been in New York and he was driving and all these, and it was leading up. You don't know what's happening. And he comes in and he sees fried chicken and he sees wine because his mother died. And it was like he came home. So,
which also sounds like my birthday dinner. Like
fried chicken and wine. Yeah. I remember it was like, well, it's funny because there was one.
It might be dinner tonight.
There's one person who was quite mad because I had, you know, broached and used the whole alcohol thing and said, you should have named it Fried Chicken and Welch's. I was like, that is funny.
No one wants Welch's with
fried chicken. I mean, just thinking like, you know, the little shot glasses of Welch's grape juice.
Oh, communion.
Yeah. Yeah. Instead of wine. So, like, there you go.
Which I only take when I'm pregnant at church. Like,
oh, yeah.
Every other Sunday.
Yeah, that's smart.
Give me the good stuff. Marshall, it's been such a joy talking to you. I have one last question for you, and let's tie in just kind of everything that we've discussed here. Mississippi and culture and work and people and love. Food, liquor, and trauma.
That's why I live here.
Yeah. So give me one word. You're excellent at sort of summarizing a really complex situation into something palatable. I think that's what you do with your illustrations. So, Mississippi, what does it mean to you? What has it meant to you? Just one word.
Stories.
Stories. That's an awesome way to end an episode of Right On Mississippi. Thank you, Marshall.
You're very welcome.